Hey, White Sox fans, Brett Ballantini here, hosting South Side Sox on the Farm podcast number 24. You didn't think we were going to get 24 podcasts out of the farm system this year, did you? Guess what? Before the end of the year, we'll probably have at least a couple more. I don't know. It just comes down to when Darren finally comes out of hibernation. We're going to let him rest for a while. You know, he's earned it. He's written 8,000 different minor league update games, sometimes based on like nothing, just based on air. He gets the telegraph beeps. Yes. And we still can't that's true. We cannot let you sleep yet because the Arizona Fall League, which seems to actively not want us to know anything about it, is still going on. And you are taking on, I believe, 5 of 7 days. So all right. Don't sleep yet, Darren. Darren, welcome. Thank you for yet again joining me on a South Side Sox on the Farm podcast. Your attendance is nearly 100%.
Yeah, well.
Now
I don't know why anybody else would want to talk about under 30 games teams.
That enthusiastic response is why we pay you the big bucks and why you just keep on coming back. I call in on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday and boom, I yell to the other room. I say, hey, roomie, snap two, get your Mets hat on. Let's talk about the minor league system and what we're going to do for this bonus episode. Might even be commercial free. Who knows? This bonus episode is going to be just looking at the system as a whole. Guys we've talked about already, but at this point, the post that's live along with this podcast is going to be just sort of a recounting of your MVP votes, sort of all-star team. We've been running that with Darren's monthly updates for the whole season, sort of like little tweaks and updates to that. There was a time where like Evan Scoug was the best catcher in the system based on MVP votes. That's no longer the case, but based on that, we're going to just run through the organization, maybe where positions of strength are and where there are weaknesses, and just I don't know, talk about the best of the best. I mean, most of these are obvious sorts of choices, Darren, but let's start behind the plate. The White Sox have a lot of catchers at the top of the system, but none of them seem to have distinguished themselves enough to really be impactful minor league wise. Is a guy like Carlos Perez the person you would place the most hope on to actually ever make a major league impact, or the White Sox just not have that catcher in their system?
Definitely they don't really have that catcher in their system. And it seems like one of Zach Collins or Sebi Zavala are going to be in AAA to see what they do. Choosing between the two to back them up. And next, fourth is probably Carlos Perez. Mm-hmm. He had his best offensive season this year, but he also was in Charlotte, very hitters friendly park. And it wasn't, the WRC plus wasn't even over 100. So it really wasn't that fantastic. But he's definitely the better feeling one. Gunnar Troutwine might be the best hitting catcher, mm-hmm. but as we've seen, he can't really catch that well, which is a problem.
Yeah.
We've seen that problem several times the past couple of years in Chicago. But not a very deep position group for the White Sox in general.
Moving to first base, obviously Gavin Sheets made an impact with Charlotte in a big way, and he impacted even beyond Adam Vaughn's impact on the major league team, getting some legit reps, scoring the last run of the season for the White Sox. Well, certainly had the last home run of the season for the White Sox in the playoffs. So we sort of won't count him. He's matriculated. He's no longer a prospect. And guys like Jameson Fisher aren't guys. Do you have to go all the way down to Arizona and the White Sox have 600 first basemen at the major league level, so it's not certainly not an urgent need. Do you go all the way down to Veras in Arizona as maybe the guy you'd think of as a first baseman with the most promise in the system, or how do you size up first base? Not that it's a position of concern, given that apparently maybe anybody can play there, but how's first base size up for you?
I guess it was. I don't know if it was supposed to be Benjamin Bailey, but I guess right now probably it would be between Wilfred Veras, just because he had a really good season and is pretty young, and then also Harvin Mendoza, just because Mendoza's proven pretty good bat to ball kind of a hitter. He has to walk more, and he's a first baseman. He really needs to get the homers up more, but I don't know if that's possible after I guess now 3 years in the system, and he hasn't proven that he's been able to hit for power. So yeah, also not a fantastic position, but it's also you've got Sheets and Vaughn already there, and you've got Abreu still there.
And he's never leaving. He's gonna play to like
Jake
55.
Berger could also play first, so they have guys that could go there, but it's still not a deep position. They're all up there already.
Second base is weird, Darren, because there are a lot of guys who can play there, who may end up playing there. There's Romy Gonzalez, there's José Rodríguez might move over there. But in terms of guys we just consider to be true second basemen, it really comes down to, at this point, I guess, Yolbert Sanchez. He's a guy that I think you've intimated could maybe even see the majors next year. So let's focus instead on what you need to see from him. Obviously, he hasn't played AAA ball yet, but what would you need to see from him, aside from just kicking ass, to make the jump and maybe even get that cup of coffee next year with the Sox?
Yeah, honestly, he just needs to put his season in AA and just continue it wherever. I'm guessing he's starting in AAA next year, just because of how well he did in AA. But he was really hitting the ball well. The strikeouts were down. I think they were actually below 10% or just right there, which is the kind of where he needs to be in the majors if he's going to be there. He's not going to walk a ton, so you also don't need to strike out a ton, or then you're kind of just a wash at that point. Not a lot of pop. I guess he's really just a worse Nick Madrigal. Like you could, honestly, I think you can count on Madrigal hitting 300 for most of his career. Yolbert Sanchez, I think you want to count on him hitting 275 and somehow itching his walks up a bit, because he's apparently really good at defensively, so that should not be a problem. Of course, we might have thought that about Madrigal too, and then he had a huge issue at second when the majors. I'm not sure what that was about. But he seems to be sure-handed. He's older, so I'm guessing he could get the opportunity. And there's not really a second baseman on the roster right now. Not that Romy Gonzalez would not be chosen above. Yolbert Sanchez to start second, but you're also assuming they're going to sign somebody. But not a fantastic pure second baseman. But again, you've got José Rodríguez, Brian Ramos can play there. I guess Romy Gonzalez is still a prospect. We don't know where he's going to start next year. He can play there.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ramos because he's listed at second base, but really pretty much DH. I mean, I don't know if that means he's just not. I mean, it'd just be a matter of having too many guys on the field.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Third base is weird too, Darren, in that there's just not a lot. You got Jake Berger, of course, but he's nearly matriculated. So I mean, I guess he barely is accomplished, sort of lopping off Charlotte, I guess, certainly any of the veteran Charlotte guys at this point, especially guys who have seen time with the White Sox, and really the system from there. I mean, you got Luis Curbelo and I guess Wes Caff, way too early to say. So somebody at third who stands out. Not that again, there's a pressing need, not as covered as up in the South Side as first base is, but Moncada probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But is there third base I'm missing, or is it just sort of a weaker spot in the system?
Yeah, well, you would have hoped it would have been Bryce Bush. That is not the case. So it's really obviously Moncada, and then you've got Berger, and then I guess you could also fix in both rookies they drafted, Wes Caff and Colson Montgomery. I guess you could do both. But Montgomery also plays shortstop, and I think that's what he mostly plays. So it's that's kind of it. There's also a huge gap in this one. Again, just go look at the records of Kannapolis and Winston-Salem. You can see there's a big gap of talent between the higher levels and then the lower levels.
Yeah, and the fact that A level, let's just say, or A maybe even to AA, especially with some of the fast movement like maybe a Sanchez and Romy Gonzalez this year, the fact that they're sort of a donut of a system is actually the way the White Sox, not that you don't want to have a great system top to bottom, but if you have to have a hole, you want it in the middle at this point, because you want to be top loaded, because apparently we've been told the window is open, Darren, in case you're unaware, the window is now open. But then the next place of strength you want is this, like a so-called next wave of guys who are just too young to make any impact yet. But hopefully somebody is going to become, hopefully Norge Vera is going to be in the White Sox rotation. Hopefully we can count on that. One of those four guys is somebody to be counted on. So if you have to have a donut of a system, or if you have a hole in your system, you would prefer that sort of donut the way the White Sox are, because they won 93 games. They don't necessarily need a stacked AA or high A. Yeah.
I mean, I guess their window of the players that they have signed isn't really ending until mid 2020s, so that's not really the concern. But their like lowest levels, Kannapolis and the rookie leagues, are not really that full either. So they have probably a bigger gap that could be easily fixed if like this 2021 draft looks good, but the 2020 draft does not look fantastic right now. This Garrett Crochet standing aside, he looks pretty good. But there's just big gaps. They're not a good system, so there's not a lot of the guys that you've heard of are the only decent prospects that are in the system at this point.
Notable, and it must be highlighted. Darren in that last 2-minute portion sounded more negative about the White Sox system than me. I gotta note it. It's a pull quote for this. I gotta note it.
It's bad.
Okay, shortstop. Obviously, you've got the man, and I guess it goes without saying we should probably actually make some sort of official podcast announcement. It seems pretty clear, or define me if I'm wrong. José Rodríguez would be a South Side Sox Player of the Year in the system. Am I wrong to assume that?
Well, I hope so. It's him or Romy, but I'm guessing it's him because he was really the only guy that was doing well in Kannapolis for a while. And I mean, he crushed it.
So he's your shortstop, even though he has not proven really that he can play shortstop, but still young. So I guess he's going to blossom into one or something, or we're going to find somewhere to put him. And of course, Romy Gonzalez, shortstop. I don't know what it's going to be next year. Next year's going to be catcher. I don't know. They're just going to spring something out. They've got maybe he's already selected the card. Ken Williams fans out a deck of cards. Romy has to pick one, and then that's his position for the year. This year it was shortstop, and he played it pretty well, given the fact that he had not played a single game professionally at shortstop before this year. Again, catcher next year might be a little rougher, but I guess I wouldn't bet against him. But shortstop wise, obviously, aside from Colson Montgomery, are there other guys that we should be paying attention to, or because José Rodríguez has been so great and technically is a shortstop, do we need to even worry about shortstop because he's just going to carry it?
Well, I mean, just like your little league team, shortstops are usually where the good guys in the infield are.
I played shortstop, Darren. I played shortstop. All right.
And especially because it's, the minors, it's still everyone's learning where to go. The White Sox moved around a lot of people this year. Sometimes weirdly, sometimes it was weird and worked out with Gavin Sheets. He was not, a detriment out there in right or left. But they do actually have another guy to just keep an eye on, Lenyon Sosa. That should be a familiar name to some people. 2019, he was pretty decent in Kannapolis. He was very good with Winston-Salem to start the year. Had like a nearly 800 OPS. But AA did not do so well. Unfortunately, he was one of kind of the few hitters that actually hit the Birmingham bump. Everyone else kind of seemed to do well, but Sosa did not. So he is at least in AA now. We'll see where he goes, because right now if José Rodríguez is starting in AA, we'll see which one actually is at shortstop when they start there. But something just to keep an eye on him. He's there. I don't know if he's ever going to make it. Again, the system isn't fantastic, but he's definitely a top 30 guy. And top 30 guys usually get brought up a lot. I don't think he's going to make the majors at all this year or anything like that. I don't know if that's possible, but just a guy to keep an eye on.
Right. In the outfield, Darren, we have the weird conundrum with our MVP votes where we basically have no pitchers and a bunch of hitters. I've corrected that in our post, but if it was to be true, we'd have 7 outfielders, and I'm just going to list them. Luis Maices, Mica Rodolfo, who may be departing us any day now. Misael Gonzalez, Mickey Matuk, Yolki Cespedes, Alex Destino, Godwin Bennett, who I think is an outfielder. I just put him an outfielder in this list I sent you. He might name me an outfielder. At any rate, Matuk, obviously just a vet guy, whatever, AAA guy. Alex Destino playing older than his level. Okay. That's nothing. Miker may not be a team, but in terms of just pure outfield, all-stars, who are 3 of the outfielders for the White Sox in the system who stood out to you as being really the best 3 we had?
Yeah, so I think everything considering for Yoelqui Cespedes, who definitely did not finish the season strong and is not doing that well in the AFL right now. He came over and did really well right away, which is what you want to see from an older, like top international prospect that you gave money to. Again, he did really well to start and kind of faltered lately. He just hasn't played enough baseball, so I'm assuming it's fatigue. But it could also just be him just getting figured out more often. People are noticing his ticks more often. So we'll see how he does next year. I'm guessing he's starting in AA. But he's definitely the top outfield prospect at this point, especially because another guy, Mica Rodolfo, who I really don't know what they're going to do. I'm assuming he's not going to be on the team, but you never know. They like to play with their options. So we'll see what happens with him. But he's definitely has the most power in the system at this point. Now that Luis Roberts is out of the top 25 rankings or top 30 rankings, it's now Mica Rodolfo most power. He proved that without a doubt this year with I think 275 ISOs in AA and AAA, which is outrageous that it's that high. He still has a strikeout problem, but I mean, with the power like that, he just kind of blew through the system and made pitchers look like they were just easy to hit off of with all the homers he had. But yeah, after that, huge drop. You could say Blake Rutherford just because he's been a top prospect and maybe he regains that eventually. I don't think so, but I know people still hold out hope for the guys that come back late. But then it's probably Luis Maeses, just because of all the tools he had. It should have been Benjamin Bailey, but he was so bad that you just can't. You can't really be excited about him going forward unless he proves that he can do it at the level that he's supposed to do it at. But yeah, it probably is Maeses, but he still has a lot of holes. But he is a lefty bat, and they need a lefty bat, so hopefully it works out with him. But yeah, there's a huge gap once you get beyond Adolfo with outfielders.
Okay, listeners, believe it or not, that was the good half of this little chat about the sort of organizational all-stars. We're going to take a break and try to find more than just a couple obvious pitchers to discuss in the second half of this podcast. We'll be right back with number 24 in just a minute. Hey, White Sox fans, it's Brett Ballantini. I'm here to host South Side Sox on the Farm podcast number 24 with my good pal, Darren Black, who's recently apparently taken on the New York Mets as his favorite team. Now that the White Sox have been eliminated from the playoffs and the Mets never made it, he roots for the underdog. He roots for the underdog, people. We talked fairly extensively about guys that we've talked about during all the year-end review wrap-up podcasts already, but we sort of put them in a context of maybe the best of the best. The hitting all-stars. Now we move to the pitching all-stars, Darren, and it didn't help that Connor Pilkington was traded midseason. Didn't help that Taylor Varnell left the game midseason, because those two were probably our number one and number two candidates for pitcher of the year simply by the MVP votes from the dear South Side Sox readers out there. And you know who I am speaking of. So by default, I think the pitcher of the year, I mean, really parenthetically, it's Norge Vera, but he only pitched 19 innings. Can't do it. Yeah. Sorry, Vera, you got to have to earn it next year. It's going to be Kade McClure, who had a pretty good year, made it to AAA, didn't do well, but he made it to AAA.
Yeah. I mean, beyond the older guys like Mike Wright Jr. and Emilio Vargas, they've known none of the legit prospects really did well. Kade McClure did do the best, but he really did not do well in Charlotte, which, not doing well right at the level below the majors is what, Jonathan Stever and Jimmy Lambert have done, and they really have not shown much. So they've just got a lot of, they have a lot of guys right there at the age that should be major leagues. But they haven't, gone over the top yet, which is why everyone's so concerned if Carlos Rodon leaves, they won't have that guy to replace him because Dallas Keuchel isn't that great anymore. So
Darren, they're going to find guys out on the free agent market.
Yeah.
Hey, it's another podcast. Okay, Darren. Okay, thought exercise, spontaneous. We've identified Kade McClure and we've identified Norge Vera. They are your 1-2 in this rotation. Darren, find 3 more starters in the White Sox organization that you would put as a all-star rotation for this year? And I'm sorry, it can't be someone traded and it can't be someone who's retired.
I mean,
gotcha.
I guess Jimmy Lambert didn't do that well. Yeah, there's not really. Yeah,
so we're going position player, pitching as of your third starter.
Yeah, I mean, I could again say Mike Wright Jr., but I'd rather.
And the truth is, listen, that's not how we're supposed to do it, but based on performance, based on MVP votes, I did neglect Mike Wright would be the third starter. It's ludicrous, but he earned that. There are other guys, say like a Blake Battingfield had little hot stretches, fell down to earth again. Not that he's a big prospect or anything. There are guys who had their little runs, but then, fell back down. So, okay. Do we have two to fill out a 5-man rotation? So we're clearly going 4-man for this all-star team, but yeah, I guess the answer is, I mean, Vargas showed, okay, they weren't really sure how to use him, but he seemed to belly up okay to the challenge of a start, even though, as you point out, he's a little bit older and from another organization. Okay, well then it's even easier then. Wink, wink. It's even easier to pick a bullpen. Clearly, there are some guys who distinguish themselves, even if statistically, maybe even a Bennett Sousa or Andrew Perez didn't like go bonkers, like they've got to be on the team out of spring training next year. Clearly, those are a couple guys who are in your all-star pen. Caleb Freeman seems to just have the gloss, going straight up to Chris Getz as the guy to watch. As always, there were some injuries, but are there other arms beyond those 3 that you'd make clear to get into your bullpen, especially because they're going to have to apparently take some spot starts?
Yeah, so I would definitely include McKinley Moore there, who also got an AFL trip. But again, they lost Zach Birdie. Tyler Johnson did not show much, mostly because he got hurt and wasn't able to come back. But even when he was in, he really wasn't showing much. I'm not really sure what to count, like Matt Foster or Jay Spry at this point, but they seem like org guys. Or quad guys at this point, not necessarily or guys that you wouldn't use ever. But again, this is a spot where you thought, oh, they've got a great bullpen going in. And now really it's just Aaron Bummer is really fine. Liam Hendricks, obviously he might have been the best closer in baseball, or up there at least. And then I guess Ronaldo Lopez showed some things, but there's really a huge drop again between McKinley Moore and Caleb Freeman, who are, I think, the 2 ranked relievers mostly. But again, then you go down to like Bennett Sousa, but then so there's not a ton there either.
It's a totally different podcast, which we'll get to at some point in the off season, Darren. But what you're saying now is, though last year there were pressing needs, right field, starting rotation, wherever else, and they chose just to bolster bullpen, and we howled about it. They could very easily pull the same shenanigans this offseason. Are you predicting that is a possibility? Because I will.
I mean, I know some people don't like the right field option. I'm a Gavin Sheets guy. I think Sheets' angle is just a fine option out there,
especially given the market.
Not that it's fantastic, but it's definitely better than what they had last year or going into this year with Adam Eaton. I think those 2 are much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they go for another like big arm in the bullpen, I'm completely fine with that. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming Michael Kopech moves to the starting rotation. I don't know what Garrett Crochet is going to do, but you're losing one reliever right there, like one of your top late inning guys, and then Craig Kimbrell's gone. Well, they don't really have anybody to kind of step in there, at least in Charlotte. Lower, they might have Caleb Freeman or McKinley Moore in the future, but they're in AA and single A. So I don't know if they're going to go straight there.
You've outlined a very reasonable strategy, Darren, but I am still going to howl when the only significant free agent acquisition they make is like somebody else's closer again. I know, hey, listen, we can use them. I know, but I'm still going to howl. Okay, here's one guy who stood out only because his MVP votes were significant. He was not even drafted. I'm curious to know, and he's also got a White Sox bloodline, and Lord knows the White Sox love bloodline players. Cole Seemas is a guy who distinguished himself at the very low levels. The guy who wasn't even drafted. Does that guy got any stuff that we can count on, or is it just too early to tell?
Yeah, Cole with a K. I think the strikeout numbers were fine, but he too many pulled balls. So just you're assuming that they're like hard hits at least. But again, he's undrafted. He might have just been like really good in the Arizona Complex League in Kannapolis just for a little bit. I don't know much about his stuff because there's not much out there about Cole Seemas. But
they barely get the game time temperature right in Arizona for our games. So yeah.
But just knowing his background, undrafted, I know it's instead of 40 rounds, 20, but 21 through 40 weren't providing a lot of great players either. So I mean, he could be, but I'm not banking anything off of undrafted guy that did pretty good.
Okay,
he did do very well though. But
not trying to create bulletin board material, but hey, Darren Black has outed himself as a Cole Seemas doubter. It's okay. And unfortunately, there were like two really like distinctive relievers this season, especially if you throw all of Charlotte out, because you sort of do have to throw all of Charlotte out. Nobody really distinguishes themselves because you can't even count Ronaldo Lopez because he was terrible in Charlotte. He wasn't even really relieving, and then he does well with the White Sox. So go figure. The White Sox need that to happen like 5 times next year, and hopefully they can be lucky enough for that to happen. And maybe they could be smart enough not to, sign Adam Eaton to fill a major offensive hole this offseason. That would be really good too. But again, podcasts in the future, not South Side Sox on the Farm podcast 24, which I think we've just concluded, Darren. I will not embarrass you by rolling through the credits again, because we already did that anyway. And I'm not going to go back and delete that from whatever the Kannapolis one, but always appreciate the work you do. Way too many minor league updates. You take them on like a champ, and you have the losing record to prove it. But appreciate it. You're still doing it. Again, misspoke a couple podcasts ago and said you were able to hibernate now that we finished these podcasts. Nope. You still got some fall league work to do, where we try to unearth maybe one gem from the fall league, to be determined. Hasn't really happened yet, but have fun with the Arizona Fall League. I hope that you get maybe a week of hibernative sleep before we call you back for, I don't know, Rule 5 or off-season signing of some other team's closer. Rule 5, of course. Yes, labor issues. What hat you're going to decide to wear next. I mean, we're going to need to do some follow-ups. You're not off until like February. Don't get any ideas. You're going to be back sooner than you want to be. But Darren, thank you for taking the time to do all these with me and providing this terrific coverage through 24 podcasts and I can't even count the number of updates you've done, but appreciate it. Weekly, monthly. I do the compiling. I count a bunch of stuff, and you do all the hard stuff. So I got the easy gig here. So I appreciate it.
Counting is not that easy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm carrying you. All right. This is Brett Ballantini for South Side Sox minor league coverage, carrying slackers like Darren Black, wearing a Mets hat. All right. Well, Rumi, we'll talk again sometime soon. But again, everybody, thanks for all season. Listen, this is a new podcast that we've thrown out there, and you've given that some pretty nice listenership. And of course, all the readership of the minor league updates, which I still can't quite understand, except to figure that maybe every single player and family and significant other is actually reading these every night. And that's cool. I hope you are. And in that case, hello to all of you. Thank you for listening and watching and reading. It's cool. You can out yourselves. You can say, hey, you can say hi to us. We'd like to know you're out there. We'll buy you a slice of pizza or a hot dog or something. No problem. Well, okay. Until next year, that will be when we resume regular minor leagues coverage. We will sign off on the farm, but we'll be back between now and, I don't know, February. We'll be talking some farm stuff, right, Darren?
Yeah, here and there.
All right. As he says, he's just here. If it's a Monday, give him a call. And I probably will. But thanks, everybody, for listening. And, well, as always, maybe not as soon as you think, but we'll be back probably sooner than you want us to be, yakking at you about the minor leagues.